We're off to Trinidad, battling our way through potholes, carts and bicycles. Cuba used to supply much of the world's sugar before the US placed an embargo on them. Trinidad, once the center of Cuba's sugar industry, nestles in the foothills of the Escambray Mountains. The Plaza Mayor. The historic plaza area has cobblestone streets, pastel-colored houses, old men smoking cigars, and the old cars still roam the streets. You get that old colonial feeling, knowing wealthy sugar barons once reigned supreme here. The obligatory but kinda cute tourist market was tucked away behind the plaza. Now the food in Cuba is a little bland, to say the least. But what have we here? We sat down, enjoyed the music and had a few drinks until the beast was cooked, and then had a great dinner. Should we deviate on the way back to our casa? The next morning, we were taken on a bicy tour of the city. But instead of the usual museums and arty places, our guide took us into the back streets and showed us how the locals live. Fascinating. This shop was where the locals could collect their free rations as dictated by the communist government. They had ration books and were allocated supplies depending on age and various other criteria. Our guides tried to explain how it worked, but it was complicated. Then we had a look at one of the old steam engines that until recently had worked in the cane fields. This man used to drive this old engine. Cuba has free schooling, so everyone can read and write. The standard of education is high, and by the look of it, the kids are very fit too. Man, this place is so full of character. Our last stop was at the pottery factory. Then we spent the afternoon at Playa Ancon, the local beach. Picture, postcard, beauty. We chose this magic little rooftop restaurant for our last night in Trinidad. Continuing on towards Sancti Spiritus, we came upon this lookout point. Beautiful vistas of the valley, similar to Vinales. We were offered a horse and cart ride through the valley to a waterfall, so we said yes. Oh my word, we jolted along on this cart for miles in the baking sun, passing mango plantations, beautiful grassy fields, fording rivers, only to find that there was a hike at the end to the falls, so declined. Our rig broke down on the way home, and running repairs were necessary. We stopped at this charming little restaurant for refreshments. With live entertainment by none other than Jose himself. A magnificently equipped outdoor kitchen. And sugarcane ready for pressing. Back at last, frazzled by the sun and in need of a chiropractor. Close by were the Valle de los Ingenios, a series of 3 valleys which were the center for sugar production. One of the sugar barons constructed this tower in 1816, and the bell that formerly hung on the top of the tower announced the beginning and the end of the workday for the slaves. Cuba actually imported 600,000 slaves, compared to the US's 350,000. It was a very hot day. We overnighted in the little town of Sancti Spiritus, one of the oldest Cuban European settlements. Known for its 16th century blue-towered church and a picturesque stone bridge over the Yayabo River. And we celebrated Lee's birthday by going out to dinner, supplemented with a buccaneer or two. The small town of Remedios is recognized as the 8th oldest city in Cuba and is famous for its Christmas festival, Las Paradas de Remedios. Preceding this festival, they have an evening for the children, and on my usual early morning walk, I saw that preparations were well on the way. This exquisite little church was very beautiful inside. Later that day, we took the old steam train to a sugar factory museum. Many of the old locos, used in the yesteryear heyday of Cuba's sugar industry, were standing proudly in the grounds. That evening, we returned to the square to watch some of the children's festivities. Young and old just have to move to the music. We went for a brief ride in this old Chevy. Aircon and digital radio, I don't think they came standard. And how about this for power steering? We then took our car and drove to Cayo Santa Maria, which was offshore at the end of this miles-long causeway. There were a few resorts on the island, and we picked this one at random to maybe have lunch at. First we walked around, beautiful, and didn't really fit into the Cuba we knew. We then had lunch and were told, no charge. Wow, I think it was a sort of all-inclusive place and they thought we were guests. Wonderful. Then we headed for Santa Clara, the site in late 1958 of the last battle in the Cuban Revolution. The iconic Che Guevara and his men blew up the troop train and invaded the town. Their victory here is seen as the decisive moment in the Cuban Revolution, as Batista fled Cuba less than 12 hours later. Che remains both a revered and reviled historical figure. Most importantly, he represents the struggle symbol for all Latin America of decades-long United States intervention, oppression, expropriation of lands and natural resources, and hence the desire for freedom and justice that runs deep until today. We left Santa Clara and headed for Varadero and Boca on the north coast, the last leg of our travels through Cuba. Being adventurous types, we took a back road which someone said was okay. Well, they were wrong. The bridge was down. No way we were trying that. So we had to backtrack, but eventually found our way to the small town of Boca, where we were staying, and our casa particular, and had a little drink. Okay, this is the second last day of our stay in Cuba, and we were going to go and have wine on the terrace. It's shocking weather, so we are having our wine and our tipple in the glorious state of our bedrooms. And found what could only be described as a shack on the beach to have supper. Funny how everyone thinks you're taking a still. The ice cream was great. Then we visited nearby Varadero, said to be Cuba's main beach resort town. But have to admit being singularly unimpressed, although we didn't get to visit the resort hotels per se. We did have lunch there, which consisted of 2 huge chunks of dried chicken. Much more interesting was an early morning walk around the back streets of Boca. The main mode of transport seemed to be horse and cart, and the odd car or two. The local shoe repair shop seemed to be doing a roaring trade. And of course a Wi-Fi hotspot, even here. And then a final visit to the palm-leaved umbrellas on the beach before we said goodbye to Cuba. A truly intriguing travel experience.